Hello, I'm Ben. Welcome to the channel. So today we're going to talk about dating. So if you're single or are dating or are looking at dating or watching any of the multitude of idiotic videos on YouTube or TikTok or any of the other social medias at this point, dating seems like it's out of control. So if you will, listen for a little bit and we'll give some people some facts that apparently people don't know. And then we'll take it from there. But I think the biggest thing I wanted to call out is when you're dating, your expectations matter more than anything else. Okay, so if you're dating with a purpose, whatever that purpose is, that should suggest ways that you act. Okay, so if you're dating with the intent of finding a partner and getting married and having a family and growing old together, like historically has been the case, then you may want to listen to a few things in this video. I've done videos before about what the Bible says a godly woman is, and I've done videos before about what the Bible says a godly man is, and then I've given you some expectations and readings from the Bible on how you can do that if you're taking this with a Christian perspective. If you are someone who practices any of the other religions in the world, and I have a book here of today's religions, and this is from the late 90s, but it's not much has changed since this has been recorded. But in here, all with the exception of two religions, see marriage and couple-them similarly to what Christianity does. So Christianity suggests one man, one woman, that is a marriage, and that's what the goal is for the majority of people. So because other religions and faiths follow the same moral code, so for most religions that is the case. But let's jump into some information that has gotten horribly wrong on the internet. So a couple of things we're going to talk about is median income, what men actually make, because women for some reason have no clue. And women sometimes in these videos have no clue what the median income is, which means they are not earning an income. If you are out there working every day and getting a paycheck, then you know what incomes are like, and you know what's a reasonable income and what seems absolutely ridiculous. The next thing is people are talking about engagement rings and things of that nature and how expensive those things should be. I heard a woman in a video say once that the engagement ring is supposed to be 3 times annual salary. That's absurd. That is insane, and that's highly, highly stupid. First off, if there's a woman that thinks that's the case, then she's not on this planet. She needs to be somewhere else. And secondly, if you're a guy that would spend 3 times your annual income to impress a woman with an engagement ring, then you deserve exactly what you're going to get for that. The saying, ladies, is it used to be men would spend 3 months' income on a wedding ring, something, or an engagement ring. 3 months of their actual income is what should be reasonable in that saying. Do I think that's reasonable? No, I do not. I think what you should focus on is a marriage, not a wedding or an engagement ring. So what I mean by that is you should do things to set up yourselves for the future, set up your situation for the future. So instead of blowing a ton of money on an engagement ring and wedding, maybe you put money together to have a great down payment for a home or to pay off school debt so you can start out with a clean slate or whatever that may be for you. One of the things I'll say, though, is this. When you're dating, it's not unlike marriage in the fact that you want to be with someone in that pursuit that is equally yoked. So the Bible says equally yoked. What does that mean? So if you're a person that's 26 years old or older and you're looking to find the person that you intend to get married to, then that's what you should be dating with that intent. So you shouldn't be going out there trying to hunt a one-night stand, etc. And people these days call people incels and all these other things for people that just aren't engaging because the dating pool is gotten pretty stupid, and people act and say ridiculous things because schools no longer teach what they used to teach. So we used to get taught civics and economics and things like that in school. There used to be tests, so each time you went from one grade to the next, you had to pass the suggested learning for that grade, and if you did not move on up to the next grade. Well, apparently in schools now, they're passing people because the number and financing for schools comes from the graduation rates versus the actual performance of the students. So what's happening, long story short, is everybody's graduating, and a lot of these morons can't even read. The reason I say that is that means they're not going to understand data from what is true or false. And it's just like the Bible. You'll see a lot of churches that are doing a lot of things that aren't Christian and are very confused. It's because they don't actually read the Bible. And there was a great quote the other day. It said that if you want to hear the Lord speaking, you should read the Bible. And if you want to hear him speaking louder, then what you should do is get the Bible on an audiobook and turn it up very loud. And I laughed because, guys, that's exactly how the Lord is speaking to us today at this time. There are no more prophets. There are no apostles. So the Bible is where we get our answers. So when you're going to what marriage is and examples around that, that's a great place to start. Now, if you're not a Christian and you don't want to get into that, then let's just talk about the numbers themselves, okay? First, let's start with this. What are the percentages of people who are single in different age groups? Because if you're in a certain age group and you're trying to date somebody in that same age group, then you want to know what the percentages are. So this is unpartnered adults is what they call it. So this is singles, both male and female. And if you're 18 to 24, 86% of people in America 18 to 24 are single. So if you're 18 to 24 years old, that means 86% of people that are your age are single. So you're not rare. There are tons of singles your age. So it's okay. You're not some type of failure. You just need to do different things to get out there and meet someone that's appropriate for you. And by I say equally yoked, the things that you would be doing based on your beliefs and how your lifestyle is laid out, that will give you the opportunity to meet these people. Dating apps, guys, are horrible. I don't know anyone of any age that has told me recently that a dating app worked. When they were new a decade ago, it was a little better because then people actually were trying to find people to date. Now it's got so contorted, people are trying to use that as a way to sell themselves. And I mean that literally. So even the other day I did a video on LinkedIn is now being used as a dating app because people are looking at people's profiles because what they see on there is fairly true because everything inside the dating apps is completely false. So that kind of tells you what those have deteriorated down to. But let's go on through the age percentage and talk about unpartnered adults by age group. Okay, so 86% of folks are single if they're age 18 to 24. If you're age 25 to 39, 42% are single. So think about that. In that age group of 25 to 39, which is the age group of when people are really settling down, still 42% of people in that age group are single in America. We'll go on up to the age groups from age 40 to 54. 29% of those people are single. So you see by the age 40, most people have settled down or they've already had a divorce and gotten to a second marriage. Some of that happens very quickly for a lot of folks. So age 40 to 54, 29% of those people are single. Age 55 to 64, 32% of those people are single. So 55 to 64, 32% of those people are single, and 65 and over, 41% of those people are single. So when you think about that, guys, in every single group, 1 in 4 people or more are single. So if you think about that and you're single and you're dating, the numbers out there are in your favor. You just have to wade yourself through what is there. And so another thing, people talk about how they look based on 1 to 10. Understand this. Where you fall as an individual, every soul is important and beautiful to God. Where you fall on a number of 1 to 10 has nothing to do with just the way you look, okay? The way you look matters. You want to be attractive. You want to find other people attractive, and you want them to find you attractive. That's a natural thing. If you look at the bird world, the males are the ones that are beautiful and trying to show out, so the females will select them. Well, so in our dating, what you want to do is you want to be the best representation of yourself. So let's talk about these age groups very quickly. So 18 to 24, what you should be doing, now this is my opinion, but I'm thinking about just all of the relationships that I've known in my life numerically. who has made it from one point to still together, etc. There are very few people that I knew that got together from age 18 to 24 that stayed together for a lifetime. Now, I do know 7 to 10 couples that is the case, and they're still successful. They're still married today. They had children at a young age, so now they're fairly young still in life, in their late 40s, and their kids are grown up, and so now they can have a good time again because they're past that point in life and are empty nesters before they're 50. That's a very common thing right now for Gen Xers. So just know that most people, though, 18 to 24, those people these days don't seem to be looking to get married. My suggestion for all men is you do not get married. You don't even consider marriage before the age of 30. And here's why. You're going to, and I'll say this like this, and I've said this before in other videos, from age 18 to 24, the decisions you make in that period of time are going to impact you for the rest of your life. So the decisions you make from the age of 18 to 24, it's going to determine what you do for a career most likely. It's going to put you on that trajectory to earn what you're going to earn in life. And the more you accomplish at that time, the higher earner you will be. So if you're messing around at that time and getting pregnant and having children and doing all this, you're going to limit yourself when it comes to income earning capacities, most likely. The people that earn the greatest amount of money in their life at the age of 18 to 24, they're out there getting after it career-wise or getting after their education. So be it lawyers, doctors, entrepreneurs, anybody who would carry a ton of money and make a lot of money at this age, they're not focused on dating and starting a family. They're focused on building their career and building themselves professionally. I was one of those people. I owned my first business at 19. After that, it launched me into an entrepreneurial career, and I was doing standard commercial things as well and mixing the two, and that's what carried me through my life and my trajectory there. I had siblings that got married during that period of time and started having children during that period of time, and it was their income grew slower, but it did grow in turn, but it did have an impact on how fast they earned and how quickly. I've always earned more than the average income because I spent my 18 to 24 years getting after my income rather than building a family and doing those things. So then the next age group is 25 to 39. If you're in that age group and you're wanting to get married at that time, you should be dating seriously with the intent of finding a person to be a lifelong partner and to get married. Also, during that period of time is the best time to have children for healthy results. As everyone knows, as you get further past 40, the risks in pregnancies increase. It's much safer now to do it than it was 2 decades ago, 40 and above, but that's just something to know. So 25 to 39, you really should be focused at that point on finding a partner to get married. From 40 to 54, most of those people are already married or have ended a marriage, and I'm looking at a second because of cheating and things of that nature. Right now, 70% to 80% of divorces are filed for women. Women file for divorce, and I've mentioned, intersex marriages and those type things. Basically, the statistics say the more women, the more problems. So in a two-man marriage, there's very few divorces and very little incidents of abuse. In standard marriages, male and female, you have women applying for divorce the majority of the time, and the worst case scenario when it comes to divorce and abuse are in a marriage that is two females. They have the worst divorce rates and they have the worst abuse rates. So if you look at the statistics, that's what the statistics are on marriage. Once you get past 40 to 54, at that point, people have found a partner or have found their second partner. So at age 55 to 64, when 32% of those are single, you'll see that most people have partnered up and have someone that they're trying to live life with. That 32% sometimes have been widowed or chose not to get married at all. And then 65 plus, 41% of those people are single because once you get older in life, you lose partners and those type things happen. So a lot of those folks are living, and entertaining the thought of a lifelong companionship or something like that. And typically, it doesn't suggest necessarily marriage at this point. Senior marriages, those statistics have fallen off since the 70s. So just know that that's not something that people are doing as much now as they used to. The median age for the first marriage by gender, most men when they get married in 1975 were 23 years old. And now these are 2025 numbers, but now in 2026, which is the same, most men are 31 years old when they get married. So it's 30.8. So it's 31 years old when they get married. Versus in 1975, they were 23. And with women in today's day and age, 28 years old seems to be the standard age for getting married. And back in 1975, it was 21. So most women have to figure out that they don't want to be career people, and they get much closer to 30 before they decide that marriage is something they should attain and get after. So just know that that's something that has impacted statistics. Now, the next is gender differences in singlehood by age. Unpartnered adults age 65 and older by gender. 51% of women pay attention, 51% of women over 65 are single, and 29% of men over 65 are single. So when you look at those statistics, it's half of women that are in that age group are single at 65, where only 29% of men remain unpartnered. So women, it's important that you find a partner before that age. Now, if you lose a partner to death or something else, then that is what it is. But that just goes to show statistically, the statistics, are not good for women in that age group. The next is race and ethnicity and the differences there in single Americans. About 44% of U.S.-born adults are unpartnered, compared to 33% of foreign-born adults. So, as you see in the Western world, most of the trends are set by Americans. So, it takes years for our bad habits to go to the rest of the world. So, right now, 61% of Black Americans are unpartnered as adults. Hispanics, 45% of unpartnered are unpartnered adults. Whites, it's 38% are unpartnered, and Asians, it's 35% that are unpartnered. Some of those Asian numbers are impacted because of how marriages are done elsewhere in the world. There's a dowry that's paid and a marriage fee that's paid for some of those, so some of that translates directly into our numbers as well. Educational attainment and singlehood in women. So what it's saying here, the big statistic you hear in the last few years is that women are better educated than males recently. What men have found out that they can do certain things, jumping right out of high school, getting into careers, getting after it, and make more money per hour than even what a advanced degree could pay them. Women, on the other hand, they don't do a lot of those jobs, so they have to attain some type of education to get into the fields, most commonly being medical fields and things in education. That is still the case. So let's look at this. 4 million women ages 15 to 50 gave birth in 2023. Think about that. In 2023, the statistics go from ages 15 to 50. 4 million women gave birth during those. Of the 1.2 million single women who were unmarried, 35.5% lived with an unmarried partner, showing that many formed households outside of marriage. Statistically, we've seen that increase over the last 3 decades, and the unfortunate side of that is children that come from a single-parent home, they are 70% more likely to be in violent crimes, committing violent crimes, and be victims of violent crimes. So the statistics around that is very, very difficult when it comes to those children of these women who are living with 35.5% of these unmarried partners. Education level also affects unmarried and birth rates. In 2023, about 49% of women without a high school diploma, and 48% of high school graduates or GED holders with a recent birth were unmarried. So let's say that again. About 49% of women without a high school diploma and 48% of people with a high school or a GED with a recent birth were unmarried. So think about that. All those people that are having births, about 50% of them did not have a high school diploma or only had a high school diploma. So as you're seeing, education is not that important to the people that are having the children. Do you see that? So you'll see that's the faster birth rate too. the women that would be getting education would not be having children typically at the same time they're in college. So that's why those numbers are what they are. In 2011, the share among women without a high school diploma was 57%, showing a clear decline over time. So even though women are getting more and more college degrees numerically, women are not graduating from high school more numerically as well. And you say, how's that possible? Well, the number of women that were going after degrees has always been climbing, and it's at its highest point now. And the number of women that are not graduating high school is also increasing. And so it's at its highest point right now. So that's not something people are shouting from the mountaintops, because it's less impressive to say that out loud. During this period, the share of women with a recent birth holding a bachelor's degree rose from 8.8% to 11%. So the ladies that went to college and got their bachelor's degree and completed that, they're having children more rapidly now from 2023, actually in 2023 from 2021 by about 3%. And so then let's go to living arrangements of single adults. Among adults ages 25 to 54, unpartnered adults earn less than those living with a spouse or a partner. So this is the thing that you want to say. People that live hard and do difficult things, they don't earn a lot of money. There was a young man that used to work for me that was kind of a pusher and did things illegally. And one time he was telling me how good of a day he had. And I said, all right, how much cash you got on you? And he just looked at me like I was crazy. He said, what do you mean? I said, how much cash you got on you? You're talking about making all this money. Let's see what you got. And so he said, I got a grip. So I said, let's see. So he pulled it out. And the cat had roughly $1,500 on him. Well, that day I had a good day too, professionally. And I said, well, and I pulled my wad out and I had about twice what he had, but I had that on me. And I was going to put it in my bank. To him, that was all he had. But I was going to put it in my bank with the rest of what I had, which was much, much more. So the point is, I was telling him at that time what he was doing, living alone and not having a cultured life and not doing something that had a futuristic point of view. It limited everything that he could do. It limited his ability to find a partner. It limited his total income. It limited all these things. So financial stability also differs in partnership status. In 2024, 64% of unpartnered adults said they were doing at least okay financially. Among partnered adults, 77% reported the same. So roughly 15% more said they were living great, and that was in 2024, which, think about it, since 2020, we've been in financial difficult times in America and in most of the world. So it's still better off if you have a partner because it's two people, two shared incomes, etc. These gaps shape housing choices and later life relationship decisions, including senior dating. All right, so let's say here, living alone versus living with others. Living alone has become more common in the U.S. In 2025, 39.7 million households had one person, accounting for 29% of all U.S. households. Age plays a central role in this pattern. Adults ages 65 and older now make up more than a quarter of all households, showing how single living rises later in life. So that's a good answer to what's happening. It's not that America has fallen off domestically to the point that we don't honor the old household situation of a mother and a father living in a household. It's now a quarter of our population are old folks. So 2 decades ago, you would die before you'd reach this age normally, right? And now we have a large group of people that are living much longer, and that's what's taken this to a greater number. So in unpartnered adults, if you look back at 1975, 20% were 65 or older, whereas in 2025, 29% are 69 and older. So it's risen by 5%, but so has the population. So numerically, it's a much greater number. All right, so the next thing we'll talk about, and all this comes back to dating, guys, it's what you want to know, because it's basically the decisions you make when you're young are going to affect you for the rest of your life. Income, spouse, partners, whatever you're looking at there, the ability to have children, the number of children you have, the education level, the intelligence level of your children, all that's based on who you pick and when you pick. Okay, so if you don't want dumb kids, you need to educate yourself and make that a symbol of importance in your mind. So the partner you pick, that's important to them. And so you can have a marriage at a point in time where you're healthy enough to have healthy children. And then those healthy children should have enough financial stability because the two of you are earning that they can get an education that sets them up for success. not that makes them absolute morons, which is what you see. Just watch the videos, guys, of people asking trivia questions on the street, stuff that Gen X had to know by 3rd grade. You have college students that can't answer those questions now. They can't answer something as simple as what countries border the United States. They can't say Canada and Mexico. They don't know that. That's borderline retarded in my book, okay? And I'm using that word because it's an extreme situation, because that's extremely dumb, okay? So single parents and relationship status, let's look at that real quick, because a lot of people are deciding now, I want to have a kid, and they want to have a kid before they're married, and they want to have a kid even if they don't intend to get married. And statistically, you can look at that. We've done videos on it, on how bad that is for the children and what that means for them. But this single parent remains closely tied to relationship status at the time of birth. So ladies, did you hear that? If you are single when you have a child, most likely you will stay single throughout your life. Okay? As a man who dated after a divorce, as a man who dated later in life, the majority of women that are out there dating past 35 years old all have children. The thing I've seen in the last 10 years is most of those women have children from multiple fathers. If you're a woman that has a child from multiple fathers, don't expect a man who earns a good living to pick you as a partner. It's just simple. The more partners that are involved in a family unit, the more problems there are. Okay, so if you're dating and that's the situation, and you get a good man that's a decent human being that earns well and treats you well, you need to do what you can to hold on to that man. This stuff where people are petty and acting stupid, you mess up there, you may be alone for the rest of your life. It's not me saying that, it's the statistics that are saying that. Single parenthood remains closely tied to relationship status at the time of the birth. This pattern is most pronounced among younger parents. In 2023, 90% of births to women ages 15 to 19 occurred outside of marriage. While the share remains high, the number of unmarried teen births has declined sharply over time because people are listening to the statistics. It is hard to live without a spouse that earns. Births to unmarried teens fell from 216,436 in 2011 all the way down to 82,530 in 2023. That's exceptional. That's great. Now, the dwindling number of births is having an effect on that, and the fact that the elderly are now over 25% of the population also has an effect on those numbers, but that's something to consider. Dating, relationships, and single life today, about 78% of Gen Z and 73% of millennials say they hope to marry. So all of the nonsense that people aren't wanting to get married, that's false. The people that are the age that should be considering marriage all are saying they still want to get married. At the same time, younger people place less emphasis on marriage as a requirement for raising children. So basically, they've gotten a little warped because they've forgotten what those statistics have just told us. So what one generation does, the next will be forced to do. So if you look back at the 70s versus the 90s, we saw this exact thing. So basically, it's all just a little bit of history repeating. Okay, so don't think there's the end of the world. The same number of people that have always wanted to get married still want to get married. So what's important to those people about marriage is still important to those people about marriage. So we're going to make some points about that in just a minute. Marriage patterns shift, okay? Marriage patterns shift with age. As millennials age, marriage rates rise. That's normal. With about 42% now married and only 5% divorced. So the divorce rates are falling as well. So not only do the same amount of people want to get married, now they're staying married. Divorce rates are falling. See? So marriage is still the norm. No matter what all the noise is, marriage is still the norm. And I say this in a dating video because if you are smart, you should be dating with the intent of getting married. And you shouldn't be having kids before you get married, because statistically, if you do that, you will earn less and most likely be single for the rest of your life. And yes, you may be married here and there and have relationships here and there, but the majority of your life, if you're having children unmarried, then most likely you will remain unmarried. That is statistically accurate for the last 40 years, okay? Yes, you may be an outlier, but probably not, okay? So as millennials age, marriage rates rise with about 42% now married and only 5% divorced. Boomers show a different pattern. About 30% have divorced, which is the highest share of any generation. And like I've said before, boomers are the most selfish people on the face of the earth. They are the first generation that took from the ones before them but left nothing to the ones that came after. And they're living the longest, which means they are depleting the family's wealth greater than any other generation before them because they're the greediest, they do nothing for the next generation, and they live the longest. So then they become a burden on those after them because they have to take care of them in their old age, or they put them in a nursing home where they have to pay for the nursing home in their old age. Or they can buy insurance and not have to pay out of pocket, but most people aren't smart enough to do that until it's too late and they actually need it. So of the boomers, 30% have divorced, which is the highest rate of any generation. These patterns also shape later life dating, which you see the increase because the boomers divorce so much, so they're the ones dating so much. And that also suggests the rise and increase of STDs in older American adults, which is disgusting, but it's a fact. The more people are single in their older age, the more they mess around with more people in their older age, and the more they get STDs in their older age. So, senior dating scams, if you're older and you're dating, it's more important that you pay attention to senior dating scams because that is specifically happening now. And guys, here's a rule for everything, and we're going to talk about the financial piece of it too, but you shouldn't pay for dates, okay? If you're paying for time, if you're paying for things, that's called prostitution, and that's illegal in America. It's not illegal everywhere else in the world, but it's illegal in America. So if you're paying some broad to do her makeup and to spend time with you and all that, that's prostitution. That's not dating. Don't do that, especially if you're trying to find a wife. And women, the same thought. If in your mind you think a man owes you something for your time, then stay home until you grow out of that, because that's a stupid thought, and you're just going to give yourself a certain type of man. Because listen, if you get into a situation where you're dating men transactionally, then you will be treated transactionally, okay? The people that work on the street are treated transactionally. The people you keep and take care of and stay with and stay old and have a family together, those people don't act in a transactional manner. They act like they want to have a relationship and be with you for life and grow old together. So online dating and social media, here's those. And guys, this video is going a little long, but I want to put all of that in one video so people can listen to it. And if you're still here, stay tuned because people say some dumb stuff and I'm trying to prevent that. If you're younger especially, this is a video you should watch to the end. All right, so online dating and social media, about 30% of U.S. adults have used dating sites or apps. Usage is highest among younger adults, with 53% of adults under 30 having tried online dating, compared to with 37% of adults aged 30 to 49. Usage declines at older ages through senior dating. However, senior dating continues as more and more adults remain single, so you're seeing a slight increase in senior dating. But seniors have a lot of things they go to, clubs and such, that are for seniors, and they meet a lot of folks there. And then in nursing homes, those things are like college dorms sometimes, and it's gross. You'll stop, it's gross. Purpose also verifies romantic relationship status. About 44% of users seek serious relationships, while 24% use apps mainly for casual dating. Never married adults are the most active users, with 52% having tried online dating, compared with 16% of married adults. Why are married adults using apps? Okay, same-sex couples are also more likely to meet online than heterosexual couples. All right, so here's the bottom line of this. Being single has become a long-term reality for many adults in the U.S. Marriage now happens later, and fewer people marry overall. There's nothing wrong with the later part. It seems like people are waiting until they're 30, which is fine. It's preferable. I don't think men should get married before 30 just because they need to get to a certain earning level, and they need to have a certain mentality and maturity. Women, it's fine because women like to do the college thing and then do a career for a little while. And by the time you're 30, career-wise, if you've been in a career, you kind of get tired of it and you're ready to have a break from it. So it works out then for women that are 30 years old to stop and have a family and do those things and be dedicated to that in that second season of life. That actually is healthy and it's strong, and you can be a strong marriage there and have healthy children and build a great family like that, okay? It's not historical, but the increase there is not bad. The fact that people are waiting a little longer to get married. Okay, U.S. marriage rate is projected to drop to 5.8 marriages per 1,000 people, or to drop to 5.8 marriages per 1,000 people, continuing a steady decline after a brief post-pandemic bump. As marriage slows, more adults remain single throughout young and midlife. No problem with that if they're calling midlife 30, okay? Some live alone. Others cohabitate without marrying. I'll say this, I cohabitated before I was married. I would not recommend it. Statistically, if you cohabitate with a person, the likelihood of you getting married is actually very slim, okay? Marriages that are successful, typically those people didn't live together beforehand, and they lived together after their marriage, and they felt closer at that point. Sometimes if you're living together before you get married, the marriage itself could actually cause a rift because you change your expectations or your thought around those things, which is normal. Guys, all these things are normal patterns through your life as you grow up. You have different viewpoints, and your thoughts about things will change. If you're in your 20s, you might not think that's the case, but wait a decade and tell me how it went. Just put it down there in the comments. These patterns show that singlehood is no longer just a short phase before marriage. It is common and a stable way that adults live today. All right, so all these are researches based on articles done through universities throughout and healthcare units throughout the country. And I think that these statistics are good. So now listen up, women. We're going to talk about income. Because on the videos that people play over and over and over again on YouTube and things like that, women are like, well, if a guy's going to date me, he has to earn $800,000 a year, because apparently those people are saying that are too freaking stupid and have never had to earn a paycheck. So what is the median income in America just overall? The median income in America for somebody in their mid-20s is around $50,000. That's pretty good. When I was in my mid-20s, that average was probably $35 to $40K. The average income for people in their mid-30s in America is around $82,000, which is exceptional. That was a high income just a decade ago. In their mid-40s is around $95,000. That's exceptional. In their mid-50s, it's around $90,000, so it's actually declined a little bit from mid-40s. And in their mid-60s, it's around $100K. Okay, that is the median. That means that's the average income for people of that age. Okay, so let's talk about how the income flexes. So the rarer people in America make, this is the highest people would make, okay, in these age brackets. The highest someone at 25 on average would make is around $190K. That's huge for a 25-year-old. The highest income made by a 35-ish-year-old would be around $500,000. The highest average income made for somebody in their mid-40s would be around $600K. The highest for someone in their mid-50s would be around $500,000, which is $500K. And then 60s, the highest someone would earn based on averages is around $600K once again. That is the highest. The lowest range for people to be making at 25 is around $10K. At 35, it's around $18K. At 45, it's around $20K. At 55, it's around $22K. And at 65, it's around $22K. So here's the point. If you're making 40 to 50 grand a year and you're in your 20s, you're doing fine. Okay? If you're making 50 to 70 grand a year and you're in your 30s, you're doing fine. If you're making 80 grand a year and you're in your 40s, you're doing fine. If you're making 90K a year and you're in your 50s, you're doing fine. If you're making 80K in your 60s, you're doing fine. Okay? These people that have the thought that people on average make more than 100K, that's false. 1% or better make over 150K a year. Okay? And 1%, that's of the world population. Okay? So that's not just single people in America. That's the world population. So all you beauty queens out there that think you're going to marry a guy in his 20s that makes over 100K, it's not going to happen. It's 0.06. It's a fraction of a percent in that age bracket that make that pay. Okay? So if you're in your 20s and 30s and you're saying, I want to get married, and he's got to make 40K should be the number coming out of your mouth. Okay, 50K maybe, 60K maybe. And when they say, what should an engagement ring cost? Nothing more than $5,000 is what should be said if you're in your 20s or your 30s. And frankly, if you have a brain, right, and you're a believer and you have faith in something bigger than yourself, then $5,000 is probably the most that ever needs to be spent on a piece of jewelry. Remember, it's not about the engagement ring and it's not about the wedding. It's about the marriage itself. What do you believe in? So here's the thing too, and we'll talk about this and then we'll get this video out of here. When you talk about partners, physical partners, there is a lot of push right now in Western culture to say numbers don't matter. And there's an increase in street culture that's being pushed around the country. And they suggest currently that 1 in 5 white girls under the age of 30, right, between 18 and 30, are on a specific website. I don't believe any of those numbers, okay? And they're hyping up females that have between 500 and 1,000 partners. That is disgusting. So listen, women, listen well. The average income for somebody that does stuff on this site that I'm talking about, listen, the average income that those women make for showing everything that God gave them in the view of the world forever, the average income is $150 to $200 a month. So you are going to ruin yourself and your future for $150 to $200 a month if you choose to do these things. There are plenty of people out there that did these things that will tell you that that's the case. The people that earn tens of millions of dollars, it is a fraction of 1% of the people that participate. So hear what I'm saying. It will ruin you for $150 a month. Here's the next piece of that. No man's going to want to marry someone that made their living in that way. The rates of self-harm increase dramatically when you do these type things. The population of 13 to 35% try to hurt themselves after they do these type of things. So think about that. That's something you need to take in mind. In a period of time in the world where we talk about mental health, there's no worse thing you can do yourself than that. And physically, both men and women, the more partners you have, the more damage you do to yourself. Okay? Physically, if you read the Bible, and psychologically, there is a physical imprint that happens between two people when you do those things with other people. So the more partners you have, the more damage you do to that. Okay? And you can get to the point where you think physical contact is intimacy. You may not at all have any more mental or social intimacy with a human being if you have so many partners. That's been proven. The divorce numbers and out of marriage birth numbers come from this type of lifestyle. It's not biblical. And understand this. So if you are a Christian and you think the devil has got pointed horns and hides in the bushes and is out there trying to get you and looks like that, and if you're not a Christian, you don't believe in the Bible, and you think the devil's a fictitious creature, then what I'll tell you is you're all in the same group. The devil has won because you're distracted in a way where you're a danger to yourself and to your future. The point is this. Purity matters, okay? For males and females, purity matters. The purer you can be, the more beautiful a life you'll live. How do I know? The Bible tells me so. That's the way it was intended. It wasn't intended for everybody to run out and do all these things and have all these partners and do all this. That's not the way it's supposed to work. You destroy yourself from the inside. You're damaging your soul. Okay, so when it comes to dating, it's very important that you are equally yoked with your partner. And you say, Ben, what does that mean? That means if your goal is to one day get married and have children, then purity should matter to you. If you're a Christian, you should hate your own sin. Physical sin includes sexuality and sexual sin, right? So you don't want to do that. You want to hold off on that until you get married. And if you're getting married at the ages of 26 to 30, then when you reach in your prime in these departments, you will be married and can share that with a partner that you can share for the rest of your life. And if you do that, then hopefully your life will go the way you want it to, and you'll have the best odds with a partner to raise an intelligent and decent family and have a situation where you'll grow old with someone who believes the way you do. So hopefully you'll have a more peaceful and a better life. Numerically, the statistics still support that, guys. So if you're a young person that thinks you're thinking something different, believe me, you're not. Everything that's been done has been done before. Okay, when you have a mohawk and you have all your stuff pierced, people have done that since the 60s. Okay, when you're out there and free loving it all and rolling around with dozens of people, people have done that since the 60s that were known. But that's happened for all of time, all of human history. There are people who are harlots and do things that they do, and there are men that do what they do, and it's historically accurate that that's always been present. The Bible says there's nothing new under the sun, okay? And what one generation does, the next generation will be forced to repeat. So that's the situation about dating. Now let's just talk about chivalry, and let's talk about men. It's become a thing here in recent social media age that men don't pay for dates. Here's my take on it. And I think my take is right because I'm a man and I'm a man's man and I've lived through decades of this stuff and I'm Gen X, right? So my generation remembers before the internet was a thing and we dated before we had internet, etc. And my generation has dated since that as well and used these apps and all this other nonsense and everything else. Here's my take of it. If I meet a woman in any way, shape, or form and I'm dating and I meet her online, I meet her at the grocery store, I meet her at a job, don't pee where you eat, folks. That means don't date people at the job. It never goes well. Don't date your boss ever. It never goes well. And don't date people that are not single people. It never goes well. He's not going to leave his wife for you. That's not how it ever works, okay? Look at the statistics. Everything is online now statistically. You can find it. But gentlemen, if you ask a lady out on a date, then you should plan the date and you should pay for the date, okay? That's twofold. If you take a woman to a restaurant and she acts like she's too neat, too fancy, too whatever, too good for that restaurant, then you take her home. Here's my suggestion. If you're dating somebody for the first time and the second time and the third time, you don't pick her up from her house. That way she can feel safer and she can meet you at the restaurant. Now you may say, Ben, I want somebody that picks me up and opens the door. They can do that on date 4, 5, and 6. Okay? With the modern world being what it is, date 1, 2, and 3, the guy should be meeting you at the restaurant, ladies. And you should have somebody dropping you off and picking you up. Okay? Don't go to a separate location. Don't go somewhere else. That anytime you leave the first location where people know where you're at, every time you change locations, you make it that much harder to find you if you get lost. Okay? So here's my suggestion. On your first, second, third date, you go out to a restaurant and you have a meal. That way you can talk and get to know each other. Or you go to a coffee shop or a bookstore. That way you can talk and get to know each other. Guys, I don't think you spend a bunch of money on a date. I don't think a date, be it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7, should be more than $150. I don't care what the expectation of the woman is. If the woman thinks guys make $300,000 a year and she thinks she's too good for the Cheesecake Factory or whatever you take her to, then allow her to be too good for that and you drive away. Find another one who money is not everything. When I was dating after I got divorced, I have 2 vehicles. I have one that's very nice and very fancy and looks like I have a lot of money. I don't drive that one often. And I have another one that's a truck that I've had for 22 years, 24 years at this point. What do you think I drive when I go on a date? So I meet the lady at a place back then when I was dating, and I would drive up in my old truck, and I would get out of my old truck and go in and introduce myself, and we'd have the date. And then when we got out, I'd walk her to her vehicle, and then I would go back and get in my old truck. So if she was watching, she'd see me get in my old truck. Because how much money I have is my business, not hers, if I'm dating her. And there's been this trend where women ask men what they make. That's none of your business. Okay, that's none of your business. How much do you weigh? Okay, that's the situation. And also women are talking about this height thing where a guy has to be over 6 feet tall. Look, I'm 6'3". The majority of my life I weighed 300 pounds, right? And I've made over 6 figures the majority of my life. So all these things that women are focusing on, those type things, that's not something I talk about. And that's not something I would ever talk about. Why? Because you're dating. I don't know this person. They're a stranger. Okay, so for women, stranger danger, right? So if you meet the guy at the restaurant, you're less in danger. If you feel uncomfortable, you can have a friend pick you up from there and take you home. That way the guy doesn't know where you live. You're safe, etc., etc. And if it's some crazy stalker guy, he doesn't know where you live. You should be carrying a purse. And frankly, everybody should be armed always. And so you should be safe. And for the guys, if the date goes bad, she doesn't have to ride home with you. You can stand up, drop $100 bill on the table, and leave, and she's got a ride, etc., etc. And women, if a guy says something stupid, like if you don't put out, I'm not paying, then you can stand up and leave at that point too, because you're not relying on that idiot for a ride. And here is the point, folks. Jesus says you're supposed to love your neighbor as yourself. Okay, that's one of the greatest commandments, he says. He gives 2 commandments before he sins. That was the second. The first commandment was love your God with all your mind, all your soul, and all your heart. That's commandment number 1. The second is love your neighbor as yourself. So when you're taking somebody out on a date, the idea is that you should want it to go well. You should want them to be happy, and you should want them to like you. So I'm going to give you a couple of anecdotes, a couple stories, and then we're going to close this video out. I went on a date one time with a young lady that I met on a dating app. And I was driving to a place and had her meet me there so we could have our first date. And at this point, we had talked on the phone. We didn't do any video chat or any of that jazz. I was working 70, 80, 90 hours a week at that point. So I didn't have time for all that nonsense, but I still made time to go out and see this young lady. So I was driving back from the East Coast and stopped in her state, and we had a date in her state, and I lived a state away. So I knew we weren't going to spend the night or anything else. It was just going to be a date, and hopefully I was meeting a nice young lady that was truthful and yada, yada, yada. Well, as I stood there and waited for her to walk up, there was a young lady walking towards me that was not the young lady that I was talking to, because I had seen a dozen pictures of her on the dating app, and she had seen a dozen pictures of me on the dating app, and the pictures of me looked just like me, because I took them in the week that I put them on the dating app, right? The pictures of her looked like her 22 years ago, okay? So the young lady that walked up to me was in my weight class. I'm sorry, ladies, I don't date in my weight class, okay? I wrestle in that weight class, but I do not do other things in that weight class. So, which might be derivative and might be small-minded or whatever. I'm not saying that it's wrong. I'm saying that's not my preference. So long story short, as this woman's walking up, I see what she's done. I've been catfished, not by a different person or a different picture, but by about a decade, okay? So this is what I did. Guys, did I show out and be rude and everything else? No. I had driven there. I was hungry. I had the money in my pocket. I said to myself, I'm going to give this young lady the best time I can possibly give her. And when we leave here, she's going to be in love with me. But when we talk next week, I'm going to tell her why I'm not going to see her again and say, hey, your dating situation was false because you had pictures when you were a bit smaller or less, however you want to say it. So we had conversation, and the conversation was fine, and the date was fine, and it went fine. The restaurant was great. The food was great. And guys, I paid for it because I'm a gentleman, and I asked her on a date. And ladies, the open the door thing, that does matter. And guys, if you open the door for a lady and she doesn't reach and unlock the door for you, then I'd believe that's a thing too. But on date 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever, you should be meeting at the restaurant. And so that time, at that point when you're doing that, you get to know them as a person. So when you use a dating app and they say they look like this, they show up looking like something else. Well, now you know they got an integrity issue and a little bit of dishonesty in them. That's how I saw it. Okay, I wasn't going to punish her for this. I was just not going to see her again if things didn't go well on the inside, because she had started off falsely when I did not. So long story short, we had a great meal. We had a decent time. I tried to have her let her have a good time. And then I walked her to her vehicle. Then I went back inside and had a drink with a young lady that was there that I saw while I was on the date prior, because I knew that date wasn't going to go anywhere. And so then after that, I went home, and she reached out to me the following week, just like we had discussed. And at that time, I told her about my concerns and said, look, I enjoyed the time with you. I hope you enjoyed the date. And she loved the date. She had a really good time. She wanted to see me again, wanted to do all this. And I told her that I felt like that was dishonest and everything else. And did it matter in the grand scheme? No, it didn't. But at the end of the day, when I got off the phone, I wasn't rude about it. I said, look, I enjoyed my time with you, but right now I'm extraordinarily busy and I don't have the time to drive back and forth to your state to make something happen. But I enjoyed the time I had with you. And so I left it at that. I put it on me. I didn't put it on her. I mentioned the things that weren't on the level as I thought, and she was fine with it. So in this situation, guys, I was not rude. I had manners because Jesus says, love your neighbor as yourself. So I treated her how I would have been wanted to be treated had I been in her shoes, even though she was dishonest and wasn't on the level. And yes, ladies, dishonesty, no matter how small, is bad. So there was a lady on a video earlier that was talking about how she went on a date with a guy and they were talking and he said, so you look different from the pictures. And so then she confessed to the guy that she used some AI pictures on her profile. That's ridiculous. Okay. You're going on a date with someone you want to think positively of you. You want a person to have a good thought process about you. So be honest. The proper things to talk about on a date. You don't talk about politics. You don't talk about finance. You should talk about religion. You should talk about what matters to you. So, for example, if I'm dating somebody for the first time and I'm sitting across the table from them, I see what she's ordered food-wise. I see what she's ordered drink-wise, so I know a little bit about her already. Okay? If she says she's vegan, I'm out of there. I'm throwing the cash on the table and running out. No, even in that situation, I would let her order whatever she ordered, and I would eat my rare steak right in front of her. Ask me how I know, right? So here's how that would go. I would start a conversation just asking about where she's from. Are you from here or not? And guys, this is how you date, okay? You ask, are you from here? And if they have that, well, have them tell you a couple of things. What's your favorite restaurant? Is this a good one? You know, did we pick a good one? Because as a guy, you should be picking the restaurant, right? Because that way, financially, you won't pick something out of your price range. Why? Because you can see everybody's menu online. You can see what it's going to pay. You can estimate what it is. So if the meal's around $100, I always want to take at least $150. I try not to go anywhere without $300 or $400 in my pocket anyway. But if you have $150, that's a good line. So here's what I mean by that. If a woman starts ordering all this crap and she gets to the point where it's over $100, go to the bathroom. Okay? Go to the bathroom and don't come back. Leave. And you may, if you see your waiter on the way out or the hostess, say, look, I was at table such and such. Give this to the waiter. That's my $60 for what I had, and I'm out. And leave. Why? Because you're there to be on a date. That person should have manners. If they're doing that kind of stuff, they don't have manners. Here's the next thing, gentlemen. If you're dating and you're in your 40s and 50s and it's the first time you're going out with a single mother and you've been married for all these years and you finally got divorced and now after a few years you started dating again because you think you could trust women again, and so you go out on a date and the woman has 73 kids at home, you're not paying for their food. You're buying her a meal. Okay, she's got to pass the test for you to get to the point where you even talk about meeting her kids, etc. And that's like 7 dates down the road. If you're on a first date and some woman tries to order a bunch of crap for people that aren't there, bounce. Don't even say anything. Stand up and leave. Let it be known that you're standing up to leave. You're supposedly met there so you can do that equally. You're not strapped to taking her home or doing something else. You can drive away because she's got her own ride. Okay, that's number one. Number two, if you go on a date and a woman shows up with other people, well, she's elected to cancel your date now and wants you to hang out with her and her friends. When you hang out with somebody and their friends, you don't pay for anything but what you have. That's the rule, okay? Don't be confused about it. And if a woman ever says something to you like, what, you're not good enough a man to pay for me and my friends, look at her and smile and say no. Because here's the thing, she's small-minded. If someone says something to try to upset you, they're trying to get an emotional response. If you give an emotional response, that means you're a weak-minded idiot. So don't do all that. Don't cuss. Don't get irate. Don't do any of that. If she says, well, you just might be a man, I say, I guess not. It doesn't hurt your feelings. Sticks and stones, right? You go back, and for you young people that don't know what that means, we used to have a saying, sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never hurt me. That's what that means, is you're not going to hurt me with some insult because we had a first date, you screwed it up, I'm never going to see you again. We were strangers last week, I didn't know you exist in the world, and guess what? Next week we'll be strangers again, and I won't know you exist in the world. Also, I've got a great cigar in the truck, and I'm going to go have that. This is still going to be a good night for me, so blah. That's what you do. Nothing, and here's the point about that, guys. If you have an attitude where you're grateful for your life, you're not missing out because you're single. You're not. If you have a great life, and you love your life and you love what you got going on, read your books, watch your TV shows, play your games, do things to improve yourself every day. Do something today that makes you better tomorrow than you were yesterday. If you're doing that every day, that's all you're supposed to do as a human being other than worship your God. So then take the time to read the Bible and say a prayer, remember your God, ask for forgiveness, repent. That's all you have to do is believe and repent. That makes you a Christian, guys. It's not rocket science. None of it is. Okay? And you don't let people lead you down a path where they're going to be able to handle your emotions. Okay? This video is going a bit long, but this is important to say. And hopefully, if 6 people watch this and get something from it, then it's beneficial, and I appreciate that. But if you're a man and you're dating after a divorce, there's several things that are very important. I did a video on this a few years ago, and so here's the thing. You shouldn't be meeting the kids in the first 2 months. Okay? You shouldn't go back to her house or wherever her kids are for the first 2 months. It opens up conversations that you don't want to have. It opens up risks that you don't need. People claim things that are false. You don't want to put yourself in that situation. So you want to meet this broad in public, and that's how you want to do it, okay? Once you start picking a person up, once you start taking a person under your power in your vehicle to take them somewhere and do something else, you increase your risk. You increase your liability, okay? So don't do that until you know the person. And it's fine if you don't know the person for 4 or 5 dates. So here's my rules. I don't have any physical contact on the first date. Okay? Second date, third date, maybe a kiss, but we're not sleeping together. I'm not going back to her house. I'm not taking her back to my house. Why? Because I don't want AIDS. If there's a woman that has sex in the first 3 dates, most likely she does that every time she has 3 dates. And she may have been with 312 people. And if you're a good guy and you were with 3 people before you got married and you were married for 20 years and now you're divorced, well, you don't have to jump up to 95 people. Okay? The thing you should do is try to be a serial monogamist where your number stays low. And you people that think a small number means something, look, I had a small number, but I was with people in dedicated relationships for the majority of my life. So if you actually count the number of times you actually do stuff in a serial monogamous type relationship, if you're that type of person, you'll have more intimate situations than anyone else, period. Okay? I've done the math. I've done the math for people that were very promiscuous. We talked about actual numbers, how many numbers I had this period of time and this period of time, this time, and how many times they had. And they had been with 20 times as many people as me, but I'd had 30 times as much encounters as they did because I was with a partner and we were doing stuff every day, sometimes 2 or 3 times a day. So the point is, you're not limited by being in a relationship. By being in a relationship and being married, you have a partner, and that should get better with that. So you gentlemen that are fresh back to the dating world, 2 things. 1, you meet at restaurants for the first 3 to 5 dates. You can do it for the first 25 dates if you're unsure about the person. If they have multiple babies, daddies, I would stop right there. Okay, 1 baby daddy is difficult enough. He might be a good dude. You might like him, but it still introduces things. And also, that's not your kid. It's a step kid, so you're always going to be treated like a second link. That is what it is. Even if the kid loves you to death and you're crazy about the kid's still going to, ask the father to do things. The worst story was one I heard last month where there was a stepdad who came in when the kid was a baby. The dad just vanished. And then when the kid was graduating from high school, the stepdad had been its father its entire life. And he paid for everything, paid for the house, paid for the bills, paid for the mom, paid for everything. And then they got 2 tickets to the graduation, and the child and the child's mother gave it to the biological father, not to the stepdad that paid for their whole life. That's bull. But listen, that should be expected. People that are not yours will not be loyal to you. Okay, if Jesus Christ can be betrayed, you can be betrayed. So that should be the thought. You shouldn't have expectations, and this is terrible, but this is true, men. You shouldn't have expectations for anyone. Okay, if you want to be happy in life, have 0 expectations. And that's what I was saying earlier about dating. If it goes real bad, I just smile and say, hey, you have a great evening. If they bring friends and try to buy extra food that's not reasonable or polite, I say, have a great evening. And then I go to my vehicle and I light a great cigar and I enjoy my ride home. And when I get home, I pet the dog. I throw the toy some so the dog can get it and bring it back. I come inside, I wash my hands, I sit down with a book for a little while, or I play a game, or I watch a movie or something. I do something that I enjoy. Why? Because I only have to answer to me and God. So the fact that she was miserable and couldn't get with the program, funk that noise, bounce, okay? And that should always be the answer, gentlemen. If you make $7 an hour and you work your butt off, and there's a young lady that seems to respect you and you want to take her out, but all you can afford is McDonald's, then you take her to McDonald's and you buy her what you can afford. And if she's a good woman, she'll appreciate it. If she acts like she's materialistic in the slightest, bounce. Because it's like this, you won't always be broke, but she will always be petty. Okay? And I would rather you improve your situation financially and be with a good woman than you do something stupid so you can be with a petty woman. Because the longer you're with the petty woman, she doesn't change. She'll always be what she is. It may just cost you more. And for example, if you marry a petty woman and you stick with someone that's not loyal, it's going to cost you 50%. The question is, at what point in your life are you going to figure that out? Are you going to be in your 20s? You're going to be in your 30s? You're going to be in your 40s? Because if you're in your 40s or 50s and she takes 50%, she just took a lot from you. And you're most likely not going to be able to earn that back in your lifetime. So if you're going to get divorced and you're going to do it 50%, you want to do that in your 20s. But if you listen to my advice and don't get married till you're 30, what happens when a man turns 30 is he starts tolerating less of the petty nonsense, because you start to realize, I am what matters. The woman that I get will be blessed to have me because I'm a good dude that's going to take care of her, protect her, take care of her kids. And even if she has one that's not mine, I'll take care of that kid too, and feed that kid and dress that kid and buy prom dresses and do all this jazz, pay for college, pay for books, do all these things because you're a great guy and you have character. So you should expect that the woman should do that too. And here is a fact, guys. If you're just newly divorced, women can't boil water now. Women can't cook at all. So when you marry a woman and go work for 20 hours a day and then come home, most likely the best meal you're going to get is going to come out of a microwave. So just understand that there are very few women out there that can make a house a home. And so when I say that, what I'm saying is there used to be a song about keeping the home fires burning. That meant something. That meant the woman was working at the house the whole time you were gone. So when you came back, it was going to be the maximum comfort. There was going to be great food. And whatever you earned, it was going to be the tip top of the situation because you had a woman there that was going to make it that much better. And I know that exists, guys. I grew up with my grandparents, and I watched that exist every single day. My grandfather worked all day on the farm. My grandmother worked in the store. She would come home and prepare a great meal and fix something at the end of that meal for tomorrow morning for breakfast, because he would be gone working before she would get out to bed. And then she would go to the store and work all day, and then she would come home and they would eat lunch on their own, a little something. And then when she got back to the house, she would cook supper, and he would come in and take his hat off and wash his face and wash his hands. And if he was really dirty, he would take off the dirty overalls and put on the clean in the house overalls. And he would sit down and he would say, "Mama, how was your day?" And she'd say, "Okay, Pop, how was yours?" And so they would talk about the day, and I was just a young dude sitting there and soaking it all in, because they were both the most impressive people I'd ever met in my lifetime, and they cared about each other so much. That's all that I ever wanted. And let me tell you, when you're a man and you have an example like that, it's hard out here because you don't find it. It's not available anymore. So if you can find a woman with character, and it doesn't matter what age you are, guys, if a woman's a classy chick, she's going to have class at the age of 17. She's not going to be with everybody on the street. She's not going to have a bunch of kids with a bunch of dudes. She's not going to have these expectations around anything. What she's going to want is you. She's going to want a man that's going to take care of her, stand by her, actually care about her. She's going to want a man that's going to want kids with her and see her do better and do better with her and stay with her in the hard times and in the good times. And men want a woman that is their place of peace. They have to be a monster out there in the world. Think about the Hulk movies, right? They're going to be this monster out there fighting the world all day. When they come home, they need somebody that's going to be their peace and allow them to rest and recover and recharge. Okay? They don't need some house slave. That's not what you're supposed to be. But domestically, women do more work in the home, because out in the world, men work more hours than the women. Tons more. And if you look at the actual overtime hours and the physicality of the jobs that men work, it's not even close. But it's not saying that one work is more valuable than the other. It's the woman's job to raise the kids and make the house a home. And yes, that's the Christian mindset, but it is the majority of the mindset and the majority of the religions around the world. And that's what's written about them, because most of the religions around the world hold a lot of what's true in Christianity to be true in them as well. And so since that's the case, the Christian household is what the majority of the world wants and what the majority of the world works for. And remember the statistics. The statistics showed that marriage is doing better today than it was in the last 20 years. The numbers are just decreasing because there's one group of old folks that just ain't dying off. They're staying there and taking all the money. But I want to say a few things. Love languages. There is a book on love language, Gary Chapman. And in this, he tells you the 5 different ways that people like to give and like to receive love. And so today, a lot of people are saying receiving gifts is my love language. If you're a dude and there's a chick that says receiving gifts is my love language, say, yeah, mine is hitting the exit door. I'm going to go love that right now and bounce. The sooner you ask those questions, the sooner you get off with that trifling woman, the sooner you have the opportunity to find a good one. Okay? And guys, if you've been cheated on, that's okay. You don't blame all women for one broad. And ladies, if you've been cheated on, that's okay. You don't blame all people for one dude. Okay? At the end of the day, we're all individuals. Every one of our souls is important to God, right? And so we want to be right with God. We want to worship God. We want to praise God. We want to ask for forgiveness. We want to do that often because we sin every day. We want to hate our own sin and try to be as pure as we can be. But then we want to honor God and honor the woman that we're with. And women, you want to honor the man that you're with. And if you have a cell phone and you're tempted to talk people on private messaging and all that jazz, then don't get married. Don't get with a man. And men, if you're doing all that and having people in DMs and stuff, don't get married. Don't get with a woman. Do that nonsense as long as you're young and stupid. But if you get to the point where you want to build a life with somebody, then treat them right. That's the Hippocratic Oath on the wall. The first thing it says is do no harm. That would be the expectation. Don't hurt the person you're with. Take care of them. So you'll say, Ben, well, why are things so difficult today or seen this way? It's because of this. This is a book in the 50s that's called Population is on the Loose. So since post-World War II, which for you people that don't know what that is, that was in the 40s. So it's been nearly 100 years. Why are you saying it's nearly 100 years? Because it's 2026 now, and that was in 1942. So pretty soon it'll be 2042, and that'll be 100 years, and we're not far from it. So after the World War II and through the 50s and 60s, governments of the world decided the population was getting out of hand, and what they decided to do was attack a few things. One of those things primarily being women, because they knew if they attacked women, especially in the Western world, that was how you would reduce the population, because if you told women that they were more powerful on their own and they believed it, then they wouldn't be having children, because good men wouldn't tolerate that. And the ones that didn't need good men and just laid on their back for anything, they would have a bunch of kids. But if they did it that way and the government was paying them to do it that way, then those people were subjects. They weren't citizens because the government was paying their bills. And once you start giving somebody the way they make their living, they'll never stop. They'll want that for the rest of their lives. So the governments of the world figured that out. They tested these things on the American Indians, then they tested in the blacks up in New England, New York and New Jersey specifically, and then in Los Angeles, and it became what the new social structure, social system is. And people can disagree with that, but if you read enough books, it'll say right here in this book what the plan was to reduce the global population. Elsewhere, it was warfare. Tipping this person against that person and watching them kill off each other's populations. And America's been successful that we start wars in other countries and fight wars in other countries because our country is so dangerous because every citizen is armed. Well, what we did simultaneously while we were arming our citizens, we disarmed the rest of the world, which allowed it to be easier to have wars where they live and diminish their populations in that manner. And if you think about it, the Muslim populations, the brown people from the deserts, those were the ones that were still having as many kids as they do, 12 and 14 on average typically. So what we did for the last 40 years is we had wars there and destroyed their populations. And then we pit the ones in Africa against each other. And you could say that theoretically in certain cities in this country, we pit certain folks against each other. And they keep their own populations minimalized. And then what we did was we legalized abortion in the Western world. Okay, and we did that in America, and there's one group of people that make up 13% of the population, but they make up 56 to 60% of the abortions. Okay, so look at your numbers, folks. Look and see what the government's doing on purpose. This isn't me saying this. This is statistics. Just like everything I gave you so far, there's proof. All you have to do is look it up. And that's the point. You got people these days, when you try to tell them the truth, they say things like, well, you need to check your sources. I did, you idiot. I actually read. Okay, so here's the point. A person that can read but doesn't is no better off than a person that can't read. So on all these things, please test the data. Please look it up. I've got a works cited page looking at me right here. I got a works cited page looking at me right here, and I've got three books on my desk that have the author, the title, and the pages that I get the stuff from. And typically I circle the page number, or I put in a slight bookmark like you can see right there. And that's where I get my facts from. And the reason I say that is I do indeed check my sources. So anybody that's going to get on any video of mine or any post of mine, because guys, I do post on a site that is called The Wisdom Hunters on Facebook. It's a group. Please join if you like. I put a lot of stuff there that doesn't make it here because it's not video content. But if you look at those things, you can see the statistics behind everything I say. And I don't want you to believe me. I want you to check it out for yourself. Because things you read, most likely you're not going to forget. And once you study something once or twice and you see the pattern, it's kind of hard not to see the patterns anymore. So it's important for us to be smart people. It's important for us to do those things purposely. And that's how I'll close this video. In dating, just like in life, what you plan and what you prepare for, the better performance you have. You need to know what you want going in so you can look for that. And you don't need to settle for something that's not what you want. Okay, but if you're going in blindly and not doing anything to make yourself better or go after what you want specifically, then you're not preparing yourself and you can't settle then. You're just getting what you earned. Okay, so this thing where people say, I settled, no, you didn't. You got what you earned. So at the end of the day, take dating seriously. Take your education seriously. Take your timeline on when you're going to have your kids seriously. And young folks, from the age 15 to 25, the decisions you make will have the greatest impact on your life. It will determine your trajectory. It will determine how much you earn. It will determine where you end up in life. If you want to be successful, I consider myself successful. I could have retired 7 times at this point. I don't buy anything new, and I take care of what's mine, and I keep it for a long time. Okay, and so in dating, your expectations should be just as serious. You want to be equally yoked. You want to have someone that shows you respect, that you respect back. There shouldn't be this back and forth. If it's rude, get up and walk out. It doesn't matter if it's the man or the woman. No one should tolerate it. First 3 dates, maybe the first 6, you meet there. And if there's something where you think you have to go, then bounce. And you're not tied to it. Hopefully this information was helpful. This video went about 4 times as long as I wanted it to, but there was a lot of stuff that I ended up wanting to put in here. If it gets a lot of views, great. If you get some value from this, put something in the comments on what was the most valuable. And if you got something else you want me to do more on or follow up on later in, then put that request in the comments as well, and I'll find that also. You can check my email address that's down in the comments or down in the description if you want to reach out to me privately, and you can reach out to me privately that way and request a certain video. And that's how I do a lot of these topics and go into it with the depth that I have, because people request specific things. Hopefully this is useful to you. If you think someone might get some value out of this, please share it with them. Please like, please subscribe. I'm Ben. Be good.